All right, I think it's 7 o'clock Eastern time. Yes, it is. Hi, everybody, and thank you so much. It's great to see so many of you who are interested in resources to support your students' emotional well-being and to help them become good citizens. I'm Carolyn Jacobs. I'm with GBH Education, which is part of GBH, Boston's PBS station, and the producer of many of the iconic programs that you see on your local public television stations. For example, American Experience, Frontline, Nova, Masterpiece, the ever popular Antiques Roadshow, and lots of programs for kids, Arthur being a prime example. We are recording this evening, and we'll send out the recording link in an email that will come from Zoom tomorrow evening, along with a link to a resource document and a link to the slides. Angelica is in the chat, and she'll be posting that link to slides and the resource document anytime, and you're welcome to follow along. We've really tried to get all of the links of the resources we'll be showcasing on this resource document, so you don't need to capture things while we're moving along. The mic and the camera are reserved for the presenters. We encourage you to be active in the chat. Sometimes your default setting in the chat is just to the presenters, so check that out, and if it is, change it to presenters and attendees, because we want your comments to be seen by all. Based on the feedback from previous webinars, of which we do many, and we listen very carefully to your feedback through surveys, we have heard that you would like to have more time to chat with each other, ask questions, process the information, etc. So we are starting routinely a new initiative, Peer Exchange, which will be a Zoom, or the platform will be Zoom webinar, and the first one will be on September 8th at 7 o'clock Eastern time. So if you like what you see tonight and you're interested in more, this will give you a little chance to review what you learned tonight, come up with some questions, whatever, and you can register for this 1-hour program on the 8th. Only the people who have registered for this will be invited, and we encourage you to come to the program with questions, and we also have some suggestions of things to review. So that's the Peer Exchange coming up on the 8th. So in addition to being sponsored this evening by GBH, which is a co-producer of PBS Learning Media, we are also sponsored by PBS Learning Media. And I imagine that many of you are familiar with this site, and if not, I hope you will be after the program tonight, and you'll be inspired to explore things. PBS Learning Media offers thousands of resources for pre-K to 12 across the curriculum. And I'm going to do a very brief introduction to PBS Learning Media before we get started just in a couple of minutes. And on to our presenters. We are very fortunate to have two teacher presenters, both very passionate about social justice and SEL issues in elementary schools. And they have a very good story to tell with lots of specific suggestions and resources. Carrie Zagarella is a longtime collaborator with GBH Education. She's a 30-plus year career kindergarten teacher, a performance poet, writer, and she enjoys sharing art created with found objects, which I imagine is a very important skill for a kindergarten teacher. Her undergrad degree is in education and theater, and her master's from Lesley University is in the Creative Arts Learning Program. She successfully leads efforts to secure funding for shared professional development, which segues into her collaboration with Lena. Lena is the co-founder of This School is Your School, along with Carrie. This is a professional development team that examines equity and social justice issues in a school culture. Lena has been teaching elementary school for over 15 years. She recently completed her master's in teaching mathematics from Mount Holyoke College, and she'll be moving into a new position as a math specialist in Ipswich in the fall, eager to advocate for equity and access. Lena also collaborates with colleagues. Both of these women are super networkers and anxious to share what they learn and learn from you and each other. She collaborates with colleagues to examine curriculum and resources through the lens of ABAR, which is an acronym for Anti-Bias, Anti-Racism Instructional Practices. She believes that in order to truly decolonize curriculum and create systems of instructional change, I love this quote, we need to center our work with the interest of our most marginalized in the forefront. Beautiful statement. Thank you, Lena, and welcome to both of you, Carrie and Lena. All right, so after a very brief introduction of PBS Learning Media, where you'll find many resources where we reference this evening, Lena and Carrie will take over for the lion's share of the program. They have a rich story to tell of collaboration and advocacy, helping to move their colleagues forward in their district in the area of social justice and equity and anti-racism teaching. And they have lots of resources to share. They've been very generous in populating their slides with lots of links. We're going to look at some of them tonight, but you'll have access to the slides and you'll be able to do that on your own time. And then we'll wind down with Angelica, who is active in the chat. She's on the education team. Angelica and I will have some additional resources and also some comments and announcements to share with you. All right, so PBS Learning Media. If you haven't already, we encourage you to sign up on the site. You are welcome to browse the site at your will with no commitment of signing up. But if you do sign up, then you have access to all the functionality of the site. So if you, you can then download resources, share them, assign them to students, do all kinds of things that you would not be able to do if you're signed in. So please take us a couple minutes and sign in. It's free, of course. When you are on the site, there are multiple ways to search. One of them is to go through these tabs right here, subjects, grades, or standards. You can search by standard. If you go into the subjects tab, I think I have a screenshot where I'm going to show that to you. What just happened here? Let me go back here. Whoops. Here we go. The subjects really drill down into topics over here, and this is a very comprehensive list. So that's what happens if you search by subjects. You could do by grade band or again by standards. You can also search, of course, in the search window by putting in a keyword, a topic, or a program or something. So in this case, I put in Arthur, and I wanted to mention that a lot of the resources on the website are drawn from public media programs. For example, Between the Lines, Curious George, Pinkalicious, Wildcrats, Peep, The Big Wide World, Zoom. People remember Zoom? And what we do is these are all programs that have strong educational value. We work with the programs and edit short clips that stand alone, address a standard, and provide teacher support documentation to go along with the media. And the support materials for students for teachers could be discussion questions, a background essay, teaching tips. And one of the most useful teaching tips is often the one that lists pre, during, and post activities before watching media. So before you watch the video, here are some previewing activities during and then after. So we've now searched Arthur, and our search results are right here, and you can see them here. Note that there is on the slide a little notation about what kind of resource this is. Collection is one of the choices here, and collections are my favorites. So when you are on the site, a great way to get used to things or to explore is to filter your search by collection. A collection is one URL, one page that takes you to multiple resources, all tied together under a theme. So this is an example of what we find when we search Arthur. And over here on the left, you see filters that you can fine tune your search. All right, so in this case, I have clicked on one of the resources, and it's a video wearing a mask drawn from Arthur. This is what we call a resource page. Over here on the right, you see the support materials that I mentioned, teaching tips, wearing a mask. Over here on the left, note this outline of a heart and the word favorite. If you would like to save this to your default folder of favorites, you simply click on the heart and then the heart fills in. And I'll show you where that favorite filter is. You can also, we are fully integrated with Google Classroom, although sometimes it's a little iffy with real young students, but you're welcome to share through Google Classroom. And also let me point out that everything is closed captioned. You can expand the viewing window, of course. Many of the resources are downloadable, and you can also slow down the speed of the resource of the video, which is very helpful for EL students. We hear over and over from teachers. This is the collection that you saw in my search results, the Arthur collection. And in this case, I have filled in that favorite heart. So now it's blue and it's filled in. And note over here on the left, there are some divisions of the collection. So it's easy to find things. We try and make it, that's our whole goal, is to make things as easy for you as possible. And if you have a suggestion about that, you let us know. All right, so my favorites, I've saved many to my favorites, but in this case, a couple that you just saw. And you find your favorites up in the top right-hand corner of the website under your name. And just click on that, and then favorites is one of the options on your dashboard. You won't have any favorites if you're not signed in, because if you're not signed in, you can't save things and then you won't be able to find anything. And over here is what my favorites look like. And you can see that it's very easy to create a new folder, name the folder, add resources to folders. You can add a link to an outside resource within a folder, have notes. Each folder has its own unique URL, share them with colleagues and students, go to town. So, all right, if you have questions about this or would like to learn a little bit more, you can go to the pbslearningmedia.org help menu, which is extremely thorough with lots of videos, and spend some time there with any specific questions you have, or you can email me. And I will make sure your email gets to the right person if I can't answer the question. All right. Now I'm going to turn this over to Lena and Carrie. Lena will start by introducing This Is Your School initiative that we mentioned before, and connect it to the work that Lena and Carrie and the committee have done and resources they've used in their classroom with their students and families. So welcome, Lena and Carrie, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Carolyn. And hello, everyone. Happy to be here and happy to share these resources with you. So Carrie and I thought it would be appropriate if we started our presentation by sharing how we started a professional learning community focused on social justice in our school. And as I do that, I would like you, our participants, to reflect on how you as an educator or an administrator or a community liaison may have started a PLC in your school or in your district, your town, on social justice and equity, and share it in the chat. And think about, like, what was your vision? What were your goals? Any advice to share? And if you haven't started one, what may be your first steps? So our story begins about 3 years ago in the halls of Winthrop School in Ipswich, Massachusetts. And Carrie and I would bump into each other, and our conversations veered towards current events and our frustrations of the backlash towards immigrants at the borders during the Trump administration. And we felt anger, we felt confusion, and we felt an urgency to act. And it was from these like very simple hallway conversations that Carrie and I came up with the idea to gather a team of teacher representatives from grades pre-K through 5, as well as our school librarian, our music teacher, our ELL teacher, to share in professional development, book study, and weekly meetings to examine equity issues and discuss how we can shift mindsets in our community. And this is how this school is your school. The name Carrie gave our professional learning community was born. So we organized a collective of teachers interested in beginning this work to catalyze change. And our wonderful school librarian, Karen Segaguchi, created this website that showcases our work. So our website is a culmination of our work throughout these past 3 years, and we invite you to take a look. Please note that all the resources listed have been completely vetted by our teachers, and you will notice lessons, books, videos that we hope would be of use to you. And we will love to hear your feedback during the peer exchange on the 8th. What resources were helpful for you? And we share this with you because, we feel that it's important that all of us continue our own work, unpacking our own biases and privileges, and engaging in civic dialogue and action. So being anti-racist is not just about plugging in a talk here and just, one little lesson here or there. It's about making equity and social justice the foundation of your curriculum and the core of your culture. Okay, you could go to slide 2, next slide. So throughout the 3 years, we took on many initiatives, but I'm just going to speak to one project we tackled. So in year 2, we began the process of conducting a diversity audit of our school and classroom libraries. And we used an app, Book Wizard, to scan our collections to get some hard numbers on books featuring non-white characters. And we asked ourselves some questions like, does this book have a main character from a diverse background? Was the book written by a person of color? Does the book involve experiences outside of middle-class America? And if the main character is a person of color, are most of the stories based on the protagonist facing a racial hardship? Or is there a balance? Are there also books that reflect just the simple wonder and experience of childhood? So our district librarians, Karen Segaguchi of Winthrop School and Teresa Howenstein of Doyon, worked together to diversify our school library collections. So here on this slide are just some of the titles they purchased that complemented the identity strand of the new social justice standards created by Learning for Justice, which you can find online. And we're beginning to use these standards to guide our curriculum development. And we're starting with our social studies units. Okay.
Thanks, Lena. So when we started this work together, we did get some pushback from families and some colleagues, and it was different levels of kind of pushback. Some folks felt like identity and community building and those kind of things are not the responsibility of schools to teach. Some folks felt like kids were too young to handle these topics, while other families appreciated what we were doing, but felt at a loss when their kids came home and said, we talked about racism today, and they weren't, it kind of took them by surprise, and they weren't really sure on what kind of language we used or what even happened. So I serve on our school council, and I've been on it for the past 3 years, which has been a very, active time in our country. And so we heard from many families that they didn't know how to support this work. They didn't have resources, and they were sort of taken aback. So this slide speaks to communication being key in this work. And I have to admit, like when I was in the meeting and they were saying things like that, I was like, well, I'm not going to ask permission to teach math. And these are standards that we do need to teach. But we are all at different levels coming in. When Lena was mentioning the books in the library, you know, I feel like I've been an activist my whole life, and I felt like my library was great. But when I dug in and looked at it, I was like, oh, all of my books with African Americans are in the sports and music, and I was horrified by that. So, you know, so basically, we're all coming at different levels, and we need to have a safe place. And families wanted heads up, and we weren't asking for permission, but we were giving them resources. GBH has so many great resources. Now, of course, in the Arthur community section, there are resources there, but as Carolyn showed you, that search engine, you will come up with so many things. One of the great things that I love about it is that all of the resources are vetted and are the very best they can be. And the videos are for kids are about a minute or 2 minutes long. So it's not this long drawn out thing. They're concise and to the point and excellent. Carolyn, if you could click on Daniel the Tiger, you know where he comes from, right? That's Mr. Rogers' gang originally. And my hero, might I add. But you'll see here that these are for families. So we share this with our families right up front, and we have it on our website as a resource as well. And you'll see handouts too. So this helps families, you know, when we do have these talks, hopefully they'll watch it before, you know, and right away. And you can see that these are for teachers and for families to use. Lessons about race and equity and activism are right there. So those are deep, and, you know, mark it as your favorite. I highly suggest you become register, because the favorite tab is really wonderful. And Carolyn, I'm so glad you mentioned about the folders, because I have so many favorites, and now, I can sort them. Very good. So I got to get organized, people. And then the special event for parents, as you see, the PBS Kids, that's another place where I found some videos on how to talk to your kids. And it's just a different thing. In this, you can see it's under the collection of virtual professional learning series. So search it's like a wonderful Pinterest rabbit hole. You can spend a lot of time finding just some excellent things. So don't like only go to the Arthur community, which also gives you so much information. So one of the things we really needed parents to understand, and you as early childhood educators, teachers in general, 6th grade teacher, we know you're there, thank you. And this probably happens at kids of all ages, like they sense chaos. And it's been a couple chaotic years for us. And in a void of information, children will create their own narrative that is often more frightening than the truth. They're wondering why this topic is taboo, and why aren't their families talking to them about it? They know something's wrong, but no one's putting words to it. So we want to share that with parents. Like, this is some of the reasons that we're doing this work, but also because it's part of the standards too. So there's an excerpt here from a newsletter, and as you can see, it was right around Thanksgiving, and it was just about stereotypes. And Tuesday was 32 degrees. And I always put in resources that support what I've taught. So sometimes you could use the Common Core standards, or in this case, I had Kids National Geographic. By using these reputable educational organizations, GBH, National Geographic, Project Zero at Harvard, all these different things, you're letting families know that this isn't your message. Like, this isn't my agenda to help kids, to teach them the truth. This is a standard, and these other organizations also support this work and find it necessary. And yeah, if you could click on that. Thank you, Carolyn. It's like you're reading my mind. I'm going to go more in depth with the identity section of this, but these are just some work that I did as part of a district-wide group, and I'll talk more about that. But this is Identity, Diversity, Justice in Action. These are from the Learning for Justice, which is formerly Teaching Tolerance. And so I did this ahead of time, and you'll see that each section has a link to a family letter that I've already written. So that can go out, you know, anytime maybe something comes up at school, because that's how things happen sometimes. The kids ask questions. So this work is all done for me now. And then I have some resources from PBS, which are very short, wonderful little videos. So I wonder if you have some other ideas about how you connect with your families. Put that in the chat. Also, think about it, how you will connect with your families, maybe about some of these topics, and we can all talk about it on the 8th. We'll have a lot to talk about on the 8th, but we can go to the next slide now. I'm talking very fast. All of you educators know that the classroom setup is the extra teacher in the room. The way that you physically set up your classroom, the procedures that you have, the routines that you have, those are all supporting really healthy social emotional learning development, because it's building independent skills, critical thinking skills, communication skills, all those things that you see in your standards. You can have your classroom do that work for you. And so this handout is Making Your Classroom a Safe Space, is very concise and comprehensive at the same time, a great reminder for veteran teachers as myself, or new teachers to, I think it's on the words up there.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. And so I'll ask you to, when you get this, these resources before September 8th, have a look at this and see if you already do some of these things, or you plan to do some, or add some more. So all of the setting up expectations, the structure, the predictability is going to help in behavior management, as you probably all know, and classroom jobs, etc. like that. Yeah, so you'll see that these are all great things here. Very well written and very concise. And it, you know, it's not terrible to share this with parents too. You know, this is what we do. This is part of what we do. I think sometimes we have like teacher resources. The pictures down below are from my classroom. And it just, for me, it is so important to have kids understand that this is, you know, our classroom. This isn't my classroom. And so giving them classroom jobs, as it says in the handout, and giving them real work, like that little girl is screwing a desk together because it fell apart. And I was like, oh, all right, you want to just fix this? And you can see the boys in the hula hoop. Imagine how many social emotional learning standards are being met inside that hula hoop to maneuver it, to get it across the playground. So, and the the teamwork slide, this is a highlights kind of hidden picture thing. And I'm using a document camera. If you don't have one, like, ask Santa, because they are phenomenal to resource. But they're looking, but they can't point. So they have to use location words, which are in our social studies standards and in our math standards. So this is all like academic stuff, but also the social emotional learning standards. Thank goodness we have those, right? Because those are also something we can stand on. And that's what's happening here in this picture. They are using those other words, but they're working together as a team. And then you just see, as you all know, that choices, kids need to have choices. You're really making all the choices. You know, you're making all of these choices available for them. So every activity that you put out, you know it's going to be good. So they'll have the freedom to build independence and hit those social emotional learning standards. Also, just to get back to thanking Carolyn for the folder idea. Yeah, that's going to help me out. But when you have this collection, these resources, you know you're going to add your own signature to it. That's what makes every classroom so special, that they shouldn't all be cookie cutter classrooms. You're going to bring your personality into it. You're going to have that folder with your favorites and other links, outside links that you can put in there. So, okay, next slide. Let's see. Okay, so this is just a closer look at what I was talking about earlier. So I worked on really the district committee kind of came out of the work that we were doing, and the other elementary school in our town, Doyon, was reviewing responsive classroom. Responsive classroom has a lot of these ideas of social justice just built in, because it's like about respect and diversity and equity. So so this work it came from that district-wide group, and a thing that Lena and I really wanted to communicate was like the success of our group was because we did so much professional development together, and we read really amazing books, and we had a safe place for me to say, oh my gosh, I only have books in the sports and music section. I was so embarrassed. So so I would think about that if you're, you know, starting, and please, we can talk more about that too on the 8th. But so let's see. Oh, so yes, we have I think, yes, you were going to the right place, Carolyn. I think you're going to click on the Arthur picture.
Oh.
Yeah. And then scroll down to around the block activities. So I'm going to give you another assignment, summer homework. And I'd like you to look at this handout too, which is a great beginning of the year activity list. Look over this list before September 8th, and maybe you're even going to try some of them in your classroom, and you can report back to us. But think about one or two that might resonate with you, and how you would incorporate that into your teaching to make it your own. And look at them dancing. Yeah, maybe you could make up a little dance too for us for the 8th. But you can see there's all kinds of wonderful resources there. Now I think you can go to the next slide, Carolyn. Thank you.
So I found that the Civics Making a Difference collection supplemented my 3rd grade Lucy Calkins Persuasive and Opinion Writing Unit perfectly. So this writing unit emphasizes the role of change agents in the classroom. And one of our first lessons involves tapping into our students' experiences with fairness by inviting them to identify problems that they see and to imagine the solutions to those problems. So to start, I model this process through a mini lesson, making a T-chart similar to what you see there, right there in that little anchor chart. And I model problems I see in my classroom, in the school, and the community, and I list possible solutions to those problems. And again, I'm using something similar to that anchor chart just to help my students visualize the process. So this year, to help my students brainstorm, I show them the video, Arthur Takes a Stand. And in this video, Arthur is trying to get his school to hire an assistant for Mrs. McGrady, the school lunch lady. As my class viewed this video, I asked them to think about the problem Arthur is trying to solve, and to notice some of the things Arthur does to try to solve the problem. Like, what worked? What didn't work? Viewing and discussing this video really helped my students to be able to choose a problem they were particularly passionate to write a speech about. And towards the end of this video, we all really paid attention to a quote by John Lewis, who makes a cameo appearance in this episode. So I'll ask the moderator if she can to play a clip from that video.
Yep, we'll get there.
Okay.
Anyway, I guess it's not my problem.
Maybe. Then again, if it's gnawing at your conscience, maybe it is your problem.
But what can I do? I already tried talking to the principal.
Sometimes people don't hear the first time. You have to be persistent. But if this means a lot to you, do not give up. Hold your ground. A person with conviction can change the world.
Thank you. It's pretty amazing that we got John Lewis to make an appearance in that video. All right, so in the next slide. So this past year was the first year that a pretty significant subset of my students wrote passionately about wanting to advocate for Black Lives Matter. I'll read an introduction that one of my students wrote for their first draft. Do you believe that Black Lives Matter? Well, I believe that Black Lives Matter. I believe that everyone should be treated equally, no matter what their skin color is. I think racism is unnecessary, rude, and really, really wrong. We need to stand up for Black lives and stop racism. So after reading their first drafts, I saw a need for my students to do more research on the cause. So I grouped these students together via Zoom or in class, since we were doing hybrid teaching. And I also asked our wonderful school librarian if she could curate some resources accessible to third graders on Black Lives Matter in order to provide context on what the movement stood for and the protests against the mistreatment of Black people. So during this time, I received a couple of emails from families who were concerned about the language that the children used in the initial drafts of their speech. For example, writing statements such as, police officers are bad, white people are mean. It was very all or nothing thinking. And I want to mention this because I believe that this also touches on why teachers may also be reluctant to openly talk about racism and inequality with their students. It can be unnerving, especially if children make blatantly racist statements. However, we must have an open dialogue. It's necessary, it's crucial. And children need to have the space to express their thoughts freely and safely, and the time to process these very complex topics. So this video from the civics collection, Arthur on Racism, Talk, Listen, and Act, it can be used as a way to launch discussions about race and inequality. So in this video, Arthur calls his best friend Buster and asks him if he saw a viral video showing a person from Elwood City experiencing violent racism. And this situation, unfortunately, is relevant to our children today. They're hearing about this. They're talking about this. So I encourage you to watch this video and think about how you can use it in your classroom, in your school, in your home. And I'm just going to ask the moderator if they could just play a clip from the video on how Mrs. McGrady advises Arthur and Buster on ways that they can help.
If you don't treat it, it's just going to get worse.
Wait, if racism is a disease, can I get it?
Buster, don't worry. This isn't about you.
Actually, it is. It's about all of us. It's not enough to just say, I'm not racist. It's not my problem. We have to actively fight against racism. As my friend John Lewis once said, if you see something that is not right, not fair, not just, you have a moral obligation to do something about it.
So did you notice how Mrs. McGrady, she actually advises Arthur and Buster to talk about racism? So, and we can guide this process. We can ask our students, our children, what were you feeling when you made this statement? Or what do you notice here? Ask them, like, why do you think that is? Who benefits from this situation? And what can we do about it? So if we could just click to that last slide, the next slide. So you can see from this speech, it's just an excerpt from one of my third graders, how much children want to talk about this topic and they want to write about this topic, and they value equity as an important part of their lives. So feel free to share in the chat, maybe the ways you think you may be to incorporate these resources into your existing curriculum. And this is something we would love to explore with you further during the peer exchange on the 8th. Okay. So at this point, we like to open this to questions.
Angelica, did you see any questions in the chat that you think Lena and I could, should, would talk about?
Haven't seen any yet, but I invite folks to drop your questions in the chat.
Okay, great. Well, we thank you, ladies, very much. A lot to think about and a lot of resources to explore. And Carrie, I don't know if I've seen a similar illustration to this before. Do you want to comment at all on what we're looking at here on the slide?
Yeah, sure. And I think there's actually, it has changed over time, where it just used to help with equality and equity. So you just see, you know, that there's the equal opportunity of, you know, everybody has the same size box, but of course, you know, equity is giving people what they need, not necessarily equal distribution. Giving people what they need to have the same access to anything, housing, food, opportunities. And then in the last one, liberation, is that, you know, all of these scaffoldings are not necessary because it is just a systemic change that doesn't require all of the supports, because it is truly liberating for all the folks, you know. So so I don't know what this, is a fourth one that when I search the image, but for me, I use this equality and equity with kids all the time. I just put up the liberation because I think you know, adults can get that, but I think the kids, my class, you know, 5- and 6-year-old kids really understood the first two panels.
Okay, great, great. All right, well, ladies, we're going to carry on, but we'll have time at the end if you want to come back on and give further comments, or give you a couple minutes to look at the chat, which I think has been very active, and then we'll move forward. So, all right, we're at the closing remarks section, and I'm going to turn things over to Angelica.
Yeah, hi folks. I am the social media marketing person at GBH Education, and everything that you've seen tonight, a lot of the resources can be found on PBS Learning Media. So PBS Learning Media is the free site where all of these resources are hosted, and as the chat folks have found out in the chat, a lot of these resources can be shared on platforms like Canvas, Schoology, Google Classroom, and more. So I highly encourage you to check it out, every resource, and see which one will fit your curriculum. So Carolyn, next slide, please. So we're all here to celebrate Arthur and all of the great resources that Arthur's been helping us teach our children for the past, I don't know, over 10 years. Arthur's about to go into his 25th season, and with it come a lot of resources that are already hosted on PBS Learning Media. So if you check out this slide here, you'll see 3 collections that are very popular with teachers. The first one, Arthur, just holds everything. Arthur, all about community, as you've seen tonight, has a lot of civics and social emotional learning resources. And the Arthur Family Health gives teachers and parents resources to talk to kids about things in regards to health, like peanut allergies, asthma, since Buster has asthma, cancer. Mrs. McGrady goes through a bout with cancer. So you can find resources to talk to children about heavy subjects like that in that collection. Next slide, Carolyn. And yes, new resources are coming to PBS Learning Media on Arthur. So everyone will get a sneak preview here of what's coming at the end of September. We have 2 new resources, a lesson plan and a video resource. And all of these resources are going to be in the All About Community collection and have support materials for teachers and students. So take a look at the descriptions there, and you'll see which ones kind of catch your interest. And of course, we'll be celebrating 25 years of Arthur. So civics in action. So tomorrow is a very exciting day on Arthur's social media. Be sure to check out our pages so that you can help vote for the new mascot of Arthur's elementary school. So there's two choices, and you know, whatever the general public says will be the new mascot. So take a gander at it tomorrow. Encourage your students, if you're already in school, to voice their choice, and head over to pbskids.org/Arthur. And then a brand new episode of Arthur premieres on September 6th. It is Arthur's first day. After 25 seasons, Arthur will finally be going to the 4th grade. So a lot of changes come with that. DW will finally move up to kindergarten. So be sure to watch and follow Arthur on social media as well.
Great, and thank you, Angelica. Angelica is really an Arthur aficionado. So if you have questions about Arthur or anything, put them in the chat or email me and I'll get you to Angelica. She has really embraced Arthur. You can see from her background. I think she's wallpapered her room with Arthur. All right, so I'm going to just whet your appetite further for PBS Learning Media and some other resource collections that might be handy for you as early elementary teachers. So Don Quixote, isn't that clever, is a new program on public television. It's a puppet series for 3 to 5-year-olds. And there are many online resources on PBS Learning Media drawn from the program that help introduce or reinforce social emotional curriculum. The learning goals for Don Quixote focus on self-regulation and executive function skills with an emphasis on resilience, persistence, and problem solving. 2 other relevant collections I've listed here. The Social Emotional Learning is a professional development collection, and links to these are in the slides and also in the resource document that we have mentioned you have access to now, and you'll also get the link in the follow-up email that comes out tomorrow. Molly of Denali, Pinkalicious, and Fairy Tales Old and New, 3 other collections that are near and dear to us. Molly of Denali is a relatively new program on public television. The resources are tagged for K2, and Molly is a very endearing animated character, the first Indigenous star of a children's animated series. She is from, as you would imagine, Denali, Alaska, and she goes on lots of adventures with her friends. And one of the educational tie-ins is reading and understanding using informational text. And the resources of Molly Denali are also abundant, and we have great feedback from them. Pinkalicious and Peterific is another GBH production and an art and creativity series for very young children, lots of lesson plans and classroom activities. And then I thought I would put 3 collection examples from STEM. GBH, I mentioned, is the co-producer of PBS Learning Media. We are very strong in science and STEM curriculum. Peg Plus Cat is produced by PBS Kids. It's a math program, a math resource, adorable and very useful. Bringing the Universe to America's Classrooms is a collaboration between GBH and NASA. We were funded over a 5-year period of time to produce resources for Earth and space science for K-12. And Carrie has used a lot of these resources for her kindergarten children on topics such as the solar system, space, weather and climate, etc. So Bringing the Universe to America's Classrooms, appropriate for all ages. And the Curious George STEM collection for young children, a lot of engineering resources. All right, we encourage you to help us do better. We take your feedback very seriously. This is the link to our post-webinar survey that our research department manages. We close it in a week because we find that people really respond to it right away before you forget what you saw. And at the end of the taking the survey, you can download a certificate to just acknowledge that you attended this evening's session. So there's the link for the survey. We want to give a plug again to the upcoming peer exchange on September 8th. I mentioned at the beginning, some of you may have logged on a little bit later, but this is based on feedback we get from teachers that you would like to have time to process the information you receive on our webinars, and then to come back online and talk to the presenters and your colleagues and process and ask questions and have a discussion. So we're going to be doing that on September 8th. Only people who have attended tonight or have registered and watched the recording will be invited. And so we look forward to seeing you, and Carrie and Lena will be a part of that also. All right, we also invite you to follow us on social media. We're very active on that. Angelica is one of our team members who handles a lot of our social posts. And I want to thank you. Thank you for coming to this. Thank you for all of the work that you do. We're very hopeful that this year is going to be easier than last year. We'll see. But we're experienced now in what remote learning is all about. This is my email. You are welcome to email me with any questions or comments. I will respond to you. And I want to invite Carrie and Lena and Angelica to come back on camera. And if you have any closing remarks or respond to anything in the chat, and then we'll be winding down and saying goodnight.
Someone had posted, I think it was Mary, and I was just gonna write something to you, Mary, but about you know, using some resources that made some families angry. And I think like when you use standards, like I had mentioned in the family communication standards and other educational reputable places to support your work, that is really good. But Lena and I both went to this lecture by Cornelius Minor, right, Lena, at Lesley University. And it was an all-day event. And what he said when we left was, this is messy work. Go out there and make some mistakes. Because, and then just get up and get back to it. Just like John Lewis said too, you know, and it isn't easy work, but you know, you're here, which means you're devoted, and it's urgent work. So, you know that and go get them. Like,
Completely agree. It's
yeah.
messy work, and you're going to make mistakes, but just take that jump and do it.
Okay, we are going to wind down and wish you a lovely evening. You will get an email that will come from Zoom. It comes out about 7 o'clock tomorrow evening with the recording link, the link to the resource document, the slides, and also the link to sign up for the September 8th peer exchange. Thank you, Carrie and Lena. It's been a blast working with you. Carrie, longtime collaborator. Lena, a new friend, and thank you. And Angelica, thanks for keeping us on track. Yeah. Thank you to all of you. Have a lovely evening and a great school year. Thank you.
Thank you.